Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Today, I have Amex Exploration on the show. They are a sponsor of my work at Rocks and Stocks News, and they have a very special situation in that they have completed a preliminary economic assessment with robust metrics in the preliminary economic assessment. But then they also have the ability, because preliminary economic assessments are sort of a snapshot in time, as are resources estimates that go into them. They also have the ability to enhance those with drilling, exploration drilling, and definition drilling. And so I'm happy to have Aaron Stone, who is the VP Exploration, on today to talk about these matters. Aaron, thank you for joining us today.
G'day, Alan. It's always a pleasure to be on with you.
So, Aaron, when I look at a preliminary economic assessment, there are certain factors that I look at very closely. Those would be the capex to bring it into production, the internal rate of return, and if that's robust, then you have a quick payback, which are the key elements of the preliminary economic assessment that you guys have put out. But then I look at it in a general sense, and industry wide, and I put the preliminary economic assessment apple to apple comparison, and there just aren't very many that gold projects that are in a jurisdiction like Quebec, which is one of the best jurisdictions in the world. So I wanted to touch on some of those subjects with you today, Aaron.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Alan. You're not going to see too many projects that have a capex of 229 million Canadian. So that just speaks to we're obviously very lucky where the project is located. We're not up in the middle of nowhere, up in the Arctic or anything like that with with Santa Claus. So very well located in the middle of the Abitibi, working in an existing town that was built for an old mine. So we've got the workforce in place, the electricity's there, the water's there. So those are some of the factors that really help out, bring that brought that capex down. We don't have to build a camp, all things like that. So yeah, it's our to give an example, our VP of project development, Jonathan Garnier, he's a mining engineer and now he's with the Amex team. He just came from the Greenstone project in Ontario, which was a $1.4 billion build out. So if he eventually builds this mine, it's going to be a much cheaper operation to build out for him. So, and as you said, with the IRR and payback period as well, yeah, the numbers that came out of our PEA are looking extremely healthy. I believe pre-tax we're talking almost 60%, and after tax a bit over 40%, and that's at the $2,000 US gold that we used as the base case for the PEA. Then if you move that to the today's spot price of around $2,600 US, those numbers just got even more attractive. I think 60% post tax and pre tax was in the 80s somewhere from memory. So that payback period is extremely short as well. All those numbers came in less than 2 years. So I believe post tax 1.8 years, after tax sorry, pre-tax 1.5 years and after tax 1.8 years at that $2,000 price. And then if you move that to the spot price, it was 1.2 years. So
Wow.
extremely quick payback. And that just again speaks to the fact of the not only the location of the project, but the ore bodies that we have. And obviously, especially the high grade zone, which is carrying the bulk amount of value for the Perron project, considering that it starts almost just below surface, but really the high grade heart of the zone is only starting, roughly 150 meters below surface. So it doesn't take much time once you get into that operation to really attack that super high grade portion of the high grade zone, and that helps the quick payback period. So
Well, you touched on a few things there that I'd like to unpack a little bit. And so, folks, when it comes to CapEx, which also there's some factors there that affect your OpEx, your operating costs. When you are right beside a town, a mining town, by the way, of Normatal, and you have road access to that project, which is only about 4 kilometers on a paved road, and you can take a taxi right to the drill core, drill rigs, and get cell phone coverage. This has a big impact on your cost to bring it into production because, as Aaron said, if you're out in the wilderness of northern Canada or you're in many other jurisdictions throughout the world, whether they're mining friendly or not, like Quebec is, where you are has a big impact on what it'll cost you to build a mine. And that's why when you look at a lot of projects that are in development these days, such as the one Aaron mentioned, which is Greenstone, the price tag is well over $1 billion these days. Having a gold project in Quebec with a capex or OPEX, a capex of only $250 million is quite a difference and puts it in a unique position.
yeah, that's exactly right, Alan. You hit the nail on the head there for sure.
And other things that affect it, of course, are so you got people that can stay right in the town of Normatal, drive to the project, go home for lunch. Victor says that's a great situation. But then you've got power and water, which are also crucial. So all of these things bring your capex down.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I can even share my screen here just to show exactly what we have in place if it wants to let me do it. Yep,
And
here we
while
go.
you're doing that, I would also say that it is also impacts these accessibility also impact your operating costs. And so you don't have to build camps. You've got power right there. You've got water right there. And so that's why you can have a very low operating cost. And with the grade, you have a very high margin there, high grade margin, which is another unique situation for the Perron project.
Yeah, so if you can see my screen now, Alan, I think you can.
Yep.
Yeah, so obviously the location of the project, and as you said, right next to the town of Normetal, and only another 20 minutes to the south is roughly in this area here is the town of Flassar. So another 10 to 12,000 people there. So the access to the local workforce is exceptional for the project. And then
Hold
this is
on,
the
before you go off that map,
yeah,
Aaron,
yeah, yeah.
there's
Yeah.
something else I would point out. Folks, there's a reason why you see all those mines, Timmins, Holt, Holloway, Kirkland Lake, Larder Lake, Randa, Valdor, Westwood, um, and all those mines. I think Casa Berardi is up there as well. This is a
Yeah,
hub of
just there.
mining for a few reasons. Well, the key reason is phenomenal geology. But then you've also got that infrastructure element that is quite spectacular. You just
Yeah,
don't
that
find these kind of regions in very many places throughout the world.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, where you can see here as well, in comparison to the other major deformation belts in the area, we're on a relatively, even though that we're still located right in the middle of the Abitibi, we're on a relatively underexplored belt, the Jacoby Deformation Belt.
Okay,
Um,
folks, the non-geos out there, what Aaron is explaining is that these structures that he's talking about are deep structures. They're crustal structures. And why that's important is that the gold, the source of the gold needs a conduit to make its way up to the surface. And these structures that are in blue are your conduits that, and look at the mineralization, the phenomenal mining all around there. And as Aaron said, that structure that sits in between two monsters is really underexplored.
Yeah, exactly right. In the past, it was thought to only be a VMS producing belt, but we've obviously put that theory to bed with all the gold that we've found on the Perron project. So,
And
uh,
notice again, folks, sorry, Aaron,
no, all good, all good.
notice again, folks, how all of those deposits, all of those fantastic, spectacular mines are sitting right at the structures. And this is the same situation for the Perron property.
Exactly right. And then, so this is the town of Normatal that we operate out of. You can see the old rehabilitated tailings facility from the old Normatal mine, which was mined from the 30s to the 70s down to a depth of 2.4 kilometers.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I hate to keep interrupting you,
no,
Aaron,
no,
but I see things that, I think need further expansion. From a general sense, a lot of times the mining sector is considered to be a dirty business and an old business, although it's crucial for our world. Look at what happens on a project after you can't even tell that used to be a mine. I mean, I could probably go throw some golf balls down on that old tailings and start playing golf there.
we have chatted about that in the past. Yeah, it looks like a perfect terrain to turn it into a golf course. You're right.
These are things that I don't think that, the generalist investors really understand about modern mining, Aaron.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can see there's no issues at all here. People have built their houses right next to the rehab tailings dam. So there's no danger to anyone in the area. It didn't affect any of the water system. It didn't affect any of the aquifers. Everything, was done up to, obviously there's, strict environmental standards in Canada that you have to adhere to, rightly so. And so, all of this is extremely safe and done to extremely high standards of safety. So yeah, there's no issues
And
for
that's why you got a mining friendly town sitting right beside it.
yeah, well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So you can see our core shed at the back of town there and the access road that goes out to our deposits. But if we zoom in here, which is right next to town, so the electrical transformer station, this is located right next to the town. Not only powers Normatal with clean hydroelectricity, but this line here runs up to the Casa Berardi mine to power Heckler's mine as well. So it's not only are we located right next to an electricity, but also the transformer station is right there as well. So
And it's
it's not like
hydroelectric powered, so you got water as well.
exactly,
Got it.
exactly. So yeah, so it's a great location to be in, and this is what helped out. One of the major things that helped bring the capex down so much. So
Good.
we can have a look here at the mine design that came out of the PEA. And if I turn it back around in this direction here, we can see the town. So you can see how close we are to the town.
What is that, like 4 or 5 kilometers?
Exactly right. As the bird flies, about 4 kilometers, and as you drive along the road, maybe 5 or 6 kilometers. So it takes you roughly 10 minutes to get out to the drill rigs.
Well, you could actually probably get city buses to take your workers you just have to convince them to make the bus route out there, Aaron.
Well, definitely right, definitely right. It's, as you said with Victor, you can go home, or all the people that live in Normantal can go home for lunch. Like you don't even have to stay at the mine site, so
Wow.
it's pretty exceptional. So
So there again, there's a big cost, folks. No need to build a camp. And a lot of remote locations, even some that are close to cities, towns, they still need to build a camp. Not necessary here, so that brings your capex down dramatically.
exactly right. And so from the closeness of all our infrastructure is another really important factor. So from the team pit in the east to the Gratien pit in the west, we're talking about a strike length of a bit less than 3 kilometers. So all of this infrastructure is located extremely close to one another.
And that is
Um,
also something that blows me away from an exploration perspective, is how many deposits are tightly packed, really close to each other, which makes me question, well, where did all this gold mineralization come from? But we can get to that later, Aaron.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Alan. And again, just as another reminder for people, this is, and as you said before, this is really the first iteration of the resource and the first iteration now of the PEA, and things are only going to grow and expand from here, which will you would continue to potentially add to the enhance the economics of the project. So, as an example, our latest discovery, the JT zone, is literally right here,
Wow.
right to the north of the where the processing plant would be located. So
And where's the
um,
high grade zone, the underground, right by that portal?
the high grade zone is sitting directly underneath, right about here.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Exactly. Yeah. So but it's just like important to point out, like as an because only the JT zone, as an example, only six or seven holes made it into the resource. So there wasn't enough data there to make it into this version of the PEA. But potentially now that we've got all nearly maybe 30 drill holes into it, the potential to add another, small open pit in this area just to the north of the processing plant is fairly likely for future iterations. So
Wow.
um, if we then,
And folks, by the way, that's sort of how mines are developed. It would be nice if you had everything completely drilled off, and but that's not the way mines work. You kind of go with what you think you can strategically. You go with what you think you can get into production, pay back the capex, but then it's a process of keeping that drill rig running to find new deposits, enhance known deposits, expand on those deposits, bring those deposits into the mine plan, and from a starting place, this project Perron is quite exceptional.
yeah, that's exactly right, Alan. And then, so this is the design of the processing plant, which, as you can see, is located right next to the underground, where the underground portal would go. And a very simple flow sheet here, very simple build out. It's just as straight as people would have seen in the PEA press release, just a straight gravimetry to carbon and leach process. So that skips out the flotation process altogether. So very simple build out. We
So,
haven't tried
folks,
to.
what Aaron is describing there is simple flow sheet means that your a lot of the gold can be captured just by gravity separation. So think of it like a cyclone that you get the heavy material that goes at the end of it, and you basically scoop out that. And a lot of the gold comes out that way, and then you have a concentrate that, as he said, you could use cyanide in leaching to get the remainder out. And there's a great picture that shows the coarse gold that would be amenable to being extracted using gravity.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Alan. That's why our flow sheet for the PEA was so simple, because as you can see here, over 75% or better in the high grade zone came out just via the gravity circuit. And
Wow.
once the cyanide circuit was added in, so the carbon and leach were all they fell all above 99%. So,
Holy
and
moly.
that even in the PEA as well, we did use a base case of 95% recovery. Um, it's more of a stock standard recovery to go with, but as you can see here, we have results of better than 99%. So when push comes to shove, when the operation is in place, you could actually see even better recoveries than that 95% that we used in the
So,
PEA.
folks, why gravity works when you're looking at material like that, and this is important whether you're looking at Amex or any other company, is this is what's referred to as free gold. It's sitting in the quartz. It's not inside of sulfides. So if it is inside the sulfides, then you have to use high temperature, high pressure to basically do what nature has done for you here, which is basically leaves you with crush the rock, put it through a gravity circuit, and that free gold comes out like a charm.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Alan. That's why we were able to skip out the flotation process in our flow sheet, because the gold is, as you said, it's not trapped within sulfide. So very simple build out. The expertise to operate a plant like this is already established in Quebec. So we wouldn't be reinventing the wheel here whatsoever.
Okay,
So then,
so as you can see, these are the issue, these are the things, factors that go into why you have a low capex, high margin project in Quebec. But I want to touch some more, Aaron, on the efforts to drill out and expand on the resources, as well as the potential to make new discoveries. And this question that always lingers in my mind, with all of these gold deposits so closely packed together, there has to be a very powerful gold mineralizing heat engine, if you will, or source where that all that gold came from. Can we touch on some of that, Aaron?
yeah, no, that's a good timing for that as well, Alan. Because if we fall on this next slide here, as we fall underground, we can kind of start to have a look at the where we can continue to expand our deposits. So
As you
obviously on
can
the
see, that big cigar shaped thing, that's the high grade zone. And what has always impressed me, like I started following this project in my reports from the discovery holes, and what has always impressed me about that high grade zone is the continuity of the high grade. As you can see, folks, there, it goes from virtually right at surface all the way down to over 1,000 meters with continuity that makes it quite exceptional.
Yeah, that's right. So in the PEA, we've defined the high grade zone down to a depth of 1.4 kilometers vertically. And if I spin the model around like this, we can just to give an idea of to people of the geometry of the ore body, which is another extremely important thing that helps bring down the OPEX when the mine is in operation. We can clearly see here the vertical nature of the high grade zone, and as Alan, you were pointing out, the continuity of the system as well. So it dips at 89 degrees to the north. So essentially
Vertical.
it's dead vertical. So that makes it extremely easy to figure out for the mining engineers here. You can see
Before we go into that, like folks, like one of the great high grade mines of Canada was the Red Lake mine. And what was interesting about Red Lake is that they didn't hit the bonanza grade zone of that mine until they got down to 1,000 meters. And it continued for another 1,000 or more meters. And when they were producing there, they were producing a 500,000 ounces a year at a cost of like $60 an ounce. Now, those numbers will have all changed. The price of gold has gone up, the costs have gone up, but these underground high grade mines can be just cash machines.
Yeah, you're right, Alan. And when you eventually start mining this thing, usually there's some more further nice surprises that come along the way when you begin development. So, as I
So
was
it's
saying,
fair to say that that depth potential relative to something like a Red Lake mine still remains wide open, but by getting down into these underground workings, instead of drilling 1,500-meter holes, you could start to look at, 300-400-meter holes and expand that depth potential.
that's exactly right. Exactly right. So you can see this is the underground portal at surface that comes down. You branch across into the high grade zone. This is the Denise pit at surface, and you can kind of see. I think we've spoken about it in the past. This is some of the underground stopes in the Denise zone. And you can see as we start to get deeper, those stopes in Denise start to get closer and closer to the high grade zone. So actually right at depth here, this is some pretty nice continuous stopes in the Denise zone right at a depth of 1.4 kilometers. So essentially on the contact off that rhyolite and the andesite of the Perron fault, and the high grade zone remains open at depth here, as does the Denise zone also. So the potential for those two to meet up at some point down here is looking pretty likely. And if there's, perhaps like you were saying, Alan, some kind of bonanza down here where Denise and the high grade zone would potentially join up with one another is something that's pretty exciting and
Well, and it's not wishful thinking, folks. These orogenic gold systems tend to be very, very deep. They can go down for thousands of meters. And another interesting thing that I think you're seeing there is that as you go deeper, they coalesce or they get tighter. And as they get tighter, the grade also goes up. And the reason for that is you're getting closer to the heat engine of the entire system. And I mean, at the end of the day, Aaron, all that gold had to come from somewhere.
yeah, that's right. It's as you said, these structures are extremely deep-seated structures. So that yeah, you're right. These deposits can be traced for kilometers of vertical depth. So
But what makes this unique, Aaron, is if you look at an great world-class orogenic gold system, such as at Red Lake and at Fosterville,
mhm.
they spent the first 20 or 30 years struggling as mines because they didn't have the continuity of that high grade right near surface. And they didn't really turn into great mines until they hit the bonanza zones of the system. You have a different situation here in that the continuity from top to bottom is quite exceptional.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can see where the higher grade zone starts just here, essentially directly below surface. So you're getting into the heart of the system very early in the mine life, which is one of those main factors that helps bring that payback period down so well to much less than 2 years. So.
So that for the time being, the high grade zone will be working its way down. And then in the future, you could drill from stations below to tap into the heat engine of the system. But up closer, you've got all these other deposits that need to be further drilled off to bring into the mine plan.
Yeah, that's right. And there's still a lot of opportunities to continue to grow upon the project. You can see the team pit here. There's a lot of resources that have the potential to be brought online in the underground areas of team, and as
Oh,
as well as
before you step over too much, there's actually a zone that you're going to get to from the high grade that sits right below this team zone. So there could be some association there, right?
Yeah, there definitely could be. Some of these structures start to meet up with one another in certain places. So there's a lot of different contributing factors to the gold mineralization here. It's not just coming from one singular fault. There are multiple across the project that are gold bearing. So and VMS bearing as well. So we're lucky in that fact as well that while this is such an amazing gold project, there is the upside of the VMS bodies that we have on the project that we haven't even looked at yet. In
Well,
terms of
because you've got so much gold you got to keep figuring out.
exactly right, exactly right. So we have been told in the past, so it's almost like we're in a VMS camp with all this incredible gold deposits. So
And
lucky.
so, folks, the high grade zone is the one that's been most drilled off. But again, you look at these other underground workings to the left, and where do they go? That gold didn't come from outer space, right, Darren?
That's right. These so out to the west here we have the this is the Grey Cat pit with the Grey Cat underground area, and this is the Gratien pit with the Gratien underground area. So you can see there's still a lot of work that can be done here to continue to add ounces in these areas. If it's going to let me zoom in or not. Well, let's see. Starting to starting to freeze up on me.
So below all of that is still wide open as well, right? You haven't cut that off or anything.
No, no, you're right. That's exactly right, Alan. So, you obviously we've defined, as we've been saying, we've defined the high grade zone down to a depth of 1.4 kilometers vertically now. Out at Grey Cat and Gratien, we're talking about only 350 to 400 meters in depth. So, we've still got these entire areas down here at depth that haven't got any drilling in them yet at this point in time, as well as now that we have the not only the MRE information, but now the PEA information in hand. This is greatly aiding us with further defining the drill planning um, over up until the Christmas period and moving into next year as well. So now that we know where all these economic stopes are, if we continue to add mineralization in areas like, as an example, in an area like this where this development ramp is already taken into consideration in the cost of the mine. If you continue to add mineralization in an area like that, you're just going to continue to add to the profitability of the project. So often we've already identified in areas as in Grey Cat and Gratien, often where we've got, as an example, there are some stopes missing in this area. More often than not, it's just simply due to a lack of information, a lack of drilling. So if we continue to add drilling in areas like that, and out here, if we continue to add economic stopes in areas like that where the development is already taken into consideration of the cost of the mine, we're just going to continue to add to the profitability of the operation.
And then you've
Um,
still got that wide open, like since I've been watching this project for the last 4 or 5 years, all of these zones are within a block of rock that's contained within two, a northern fault and a southern fault. And the Beaupre block is in between. And all of these discoveries are in that Beaupre block. But I believe that the faults are your conduits, and somewhere below there is the heat engine that is responsible for all of this. Maybe there's multiple heat engines, but I think that structure, I believe it goes from the southern one dips towards the north, and the northern one dips towards the south. Do I have that right, Aaron?
They both roughly dip towards the northeast at roughly 70 degrees. So
Northeast, okay.
yeah.
And so, these are the potential structural plumbing system for this whole thing. And are you guys contemplating trying to figure out where all the heat engine for this whole thing comes from?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Alan. It's always a tricky one because obviously these heat sources can come from such significant depths, but it's always something that's in the back of the geologist minds is where exactly these deposits have come from. But it's like you said, these structures are extremely important. If I go we have a look at the geology map here as a reminder for everyone. And as you were talking about, Alan, you've got the Perron fault, to the south, and the Normital fault to the north, and then we've got the Beaupré block, this sodic rhyolite trapped within the middle, which is a rhyolitic dome. So that's where all of our gold mineralization has been found to date, and it's like you said, these structures are extremely deep seated, and these ore bodies can continue running in kilometers in depth. So
So when I
how?
look at that structure, I see two pinch points at either end of it. That is very interesting to me. But what also is interesting to me is for orogenic gold deposits, the Normital South Block is actually more within the model of what you would look for in orogenic gold systems.
Yep, no, that's exactly right, Alan. So you've got on the very south of the property here, we've got the North Jacoby Fault, which is separates the volcanics from the sediments in the south, and is essentially the main fault that is controlling the deformation along the entire Jacoby deformation belt. Um, and like you said, usually in these orogenic systems in the Abitibi, typically where you start looking is in the mafic volcanics, not the felsic volcanics. And this andesitic block in the south here, that's what we've got there is a mafic volcanic, which we've barely touched to date. There's a few historical drill holes around the place, but that's about it.
And
So
so
all
that volcanic sequence there dips towards the northeast, so it is goes underneath the Beaupré block,
yes,
right?
exactly.
How have you ever done? Is there any analysis as to how deep that Beaupré block goes
That's a
before it
great
runs
question.
into the volcanics?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it is a rhyolitic dome as we've spoken about in the past. So we're lucky to have that geology on the property. It's not really repeated in many other places along the Normital Fault, which stretches for a good 50, 60 kilometers just on the Quebec side, I believe, and then continues into Ontario as well. But we're the only ones with the Perron fault on the property, hence the name of the project. So the depth of the exact depth of the Beaupré block, yeah, it's anyone's guess, but it's you could easily be 5 kilometers. Who it's a tough question to answer. It could be extremely deep seated, Alan.
It's very interesting on that old rock there, that volcanics sitting going underneath your Beaupré block, which again I keep thinking about where is the source for all of this gold. You've got such a tightly packed series of deposits, and where did all the gold come from?
Yeah, that's right. And whether or not the structures that we have in the Beaupré block continue into the Normantal South block is still a question that hasn't been answered yet. So um, you can see another example. We've got this diabase dike running through the southern block as well, and and you can see a lot of these north-south diabase dikes that run through the Beaupré block are often cutting right through the middle of our gold deposits there.
Huh.
They're late dikes. They're not related to mineralization, but they always seem to enjoy cutting through areas of structural weakness where these structures are already cross-cutting through. So even in the
Wow,
South Block,
that
we
brings
do.
up a huge question for me, which is you notice how those diabase dikes that are associated with your mineralization in the Beaupré block, they're indicative of finding weak rock or where the conduits are making it so that these thin dikes can come in. But then you look on the east side, and those diabase dikes are huge. So does that open up the whole eastern side of where the Normatel fault, the Perron fault, and those volcanics are located? Because now you've got big dikes, and are they indicative of really well prepared rock that you could find more deposits in?
Yeah, for me it does, Alan. 100% does, and you can see this much larger diabase dike running through over here. Has roughly the same orientation as a lot of the structures in the that run through the Beaupré block. So the high grade zone has a strike of roughly 80 degrees east northeast, as does a structure that seems to be joining up JT with Alazigre, Cat and Gratien. There's some potential for further east northeast structures in the western portions of the Beaupré block. So I don't think it's a coincidence that this diabase dike is following that same orientation. And we do as
And
well
so,
have some.
folks, why this is important is the diabase is not important to the mineralization because it happened later than the mineralization. But why it's a sort of something that could be used for targeting is it kind of gives you an idea of where the rocks were prepared well for gold mineralization much a longer time ago. And these diabase dikes are following a similar, they're following that path of least resistance.
Yep, that's right, Alan. And we've got some down in the south here. We have some gold in soil anomalies surrounding the diabase dike here, where it branches out into two arms here. We've got some gold in soil anomalies there as well as in previous drilling. And and we've got some really good gold and VMS anomalies up in the north eastern corner of that diabase dike. So it's certainly an important looking structure that we could potentially go and make further discoveries along the contacts off.
So there again, folks, you go back to what we started out at, which is this is the way long-term mines that last for decades follow. You start with something that you can wrap your economics around, and then you expand on that. You start mining, you make money, and then you keep using the drill rig to keep that pumping more gold into the resources and then the economic studies. And that's the way some of the you never drill it off to the point that you say, okay, we got a 30-year mine in these gold systems in orogenic gold systems. You start out from here and you keep expanding. And so that brings up the whole idea that not only do they have a great preliminary economic assessment in one of the best mining jurisdictions in the world, but it's wide open for exploration to add to the resources and add to the ounces that then go into economic studies.
Yeah, that's right. And this pattern Pluton that we have to the northwest as well, this has controlled a lot of the deformation in the area also. So we haven't done any drilling up in this area either. which we have now direct road access thanks to the forestry work that was done after the fires in last year's summer. So we can drive right up to some of these targets now, and we do have some further gold in soil anomalies along the contact of that pattern pluton, which could even host a different type of gold mineralization to what we see in the Beauplay block. So yeah, remains wide open for further discoveries. So yeah, I'm excited about continuing to drill into next year in 2025, and especially out in these western areas of the Beauplay block where we still have very limited sparse drilling. Looking at doing some original work in the South Block, and potentially looking at some further discoveries up in the northwestern area too. And that's not to mention the VMS potential that remains on the property too. We've obviously got the QF zone, which is a copper rich VMS system, which was found in the exact same package of rocks as the old Normetal mine, 4 kilometers to the south east of us. So that's only got roughly 12 drill holes into it so far. So at its very early days still, remains wide open. So there's a lot of optionality on the Perron project, that's for sure.
So I've been instructed by people that follow the company, Aaron, I'm supposed to ask you, how many drill rigs are you running?
Yep. Yeah, no, good question, Alan. So we currently have two drill rigs on site, and they are currently on the here we are. We were talking about this just before. They're currently working on expanding the economic stopes of the Grey Cat and Gracien areas. So that's where the two drill rigs are currently working on, with areas that we've identified to expand upon the economic stopes and grow the open pits with areas that were previously lacking drilling. So.
So what's the budget for drilling, and how much drilling do you sort of ballpark have an idea you'll do in 2025?
Yeah, good question. We've currently got $20 million in the treasury, so about roughly 13 to 14 of that is flow through, and about six and a half of hard cash. That was the latest financing that Victor completed, was the top up of the hard cash position, and Eldorado came in again, maintained their 9.9% position in the company, as well as Eric Sprott contributed again. I think he actually increased his position. So that's got us budgeted all the way through to the end of 2025, with the drill rigs that we have on site at the moment.
Well, and folks, Eldorado Gold doesn't throw their money into a strategic investment into a company like Amex. They've done their homework, which puts a seal of approval on the project, but they're interested in mining. They don't buy stock for the sake of buying, making a stock play. They want a strategic investment into this project for a reason, and they've done a lot more homework than even Amex has done, to tell you the truth. Right, Aaron?
Yeah, and they're great to work with as well, Alan. We've got the technical committee set up with them, that we have quarterly meetings, and they're obviously being the size of the mining company that they are, obviously have a lot of very smart people that work for them. So it's always great to provide them with updates and get their feedback on a lot of different things. So there's just a couple of examples. We get a lot of great feedback on doing orientated core. We started doing a hyperspectral program, which measures the alteration in the drill core on the property. And this is a lot of stuff that the Eldorado guys are able to help out and advise us on. So it's certainly great working with them and having them up on site for site visits when they're available. And they've got some extremely intelligent people in the team, so it's great to be able to feed off that for sure.
Well, I've also given you a recommendation, and it comes from my experience in diamond exploration. And diamonds are they make gold nuggety effect look like child's play. For example, a 1 carat diamond only weighs a fifth of a gram. Okay,
Mm,
so you're looking for these tiny little things. And so um, understanding representative grade is crucial in a diamond deposit. And how you go about doing that is do big bulk samples so that you can get all the, because when you're drilling a hole into the ground, you got a small diameter hole. And think about that, folks, looking for something that is a fifth of a carat with a tiny little drill hole going through just one ton of rock. Your chances of finding it are really slim, and that's in a high grade deposit. So one thing that I think this would project would benefit dramatically from is using photon assaying. It's an emerging method to assay, but why I like it is getting back to my experience in diamonds. When you cut a drill core, you for traditional assaying, you cut that core and you send it off to the lab. The lab takes only a small portion of that and tries to give you a representative grade of the gold in there. Now, oftentimes a metallic screening is used, and think of it like a screen for flour. You crush the rock up and you put it through a screen, and this will get you more of your gold, but there is a possibility that even in that case, some of it is missed. So you're under representing the actual grade. Now, with photon assaying, you actually use the entire core and you don't have to cut it. And they use like X-ray to assess the content of gold in there. These are very highly sensitive X-rays. In fact, X-ray recovery is something that you use in diamonds. So the X-rays actually see the diamond and blast air in and shoot it out, and so you recover it. So photon assaying, I think, in these orogenic, nuggety, coarse grain systems are going to be the standard in the future. So I've recommended you guys use photon assaying. Are you guys looking into that, Aaron?
I did meet with the photon assay team, Allan, at the Explore conference here in Montreal not so long ago. So I've had those initial discussions with them and started looking at the technology. Luckily for us though, that's something we are looking at for sure, but something that we're extremely fortunate to have, especially within the high grade zone, is, as we've talked about, the continuity of the system, and we really don't see as much of that nugget effect going on within the high grade zone as other deposits may have. So typically in the high grade zone, you can drill a hole. Maybe if we bring up
But
the
even in that
longitudinal.
situation, yes, the coarse gold, fine grain to coarse gold is continuous. But I think what you're going to find here, Aaron, is that when you start doing bulk samples, every time I've seen a project that has coarse gold, free gold like that, that takes a bulk sample, it always shows a higher grade. And I think photon assaying can relieve you of that problem.
Yeah, it's something that we're looking at, Alan. You're right. You're right in the fact that as we increase in confidence, our grade does improve. So out of the resource, we had our inferred resources were, I'm talking about the high grade zone specifically. Our inferred resources were 10.5 grams. Our indicated were at 11, about 11 and a half, I believe. And our measured was all the way up to just below 16 grams. So
So what that describes there, folks, is that as they get more drill hole density, which in basic terms is as they get more material to understand the representative grades, the grades are going up. And that's you're giving me more reason, Aaron, to push you guys to using photon assaying, because actually what you're saying there is that your drill core, your truth machine, is telling you that the the drilling is telling you that it's underrepresenting until you get higher density and a higher volume of rock to assess.
Yeah, and that's probably another reason why the PQ size holes that we did for the metallurgy testing, which are the ones in blue here, came back even better grade than our normal holes. But we are lucky in the fact that we do, as an example, if we were to place another hole right here as an example, the chances that we hit extremely similar grades to the surrounding holes are pretty high. So we are lucky to have a pretty continuous system on our hands here in the high grade zone.
Yeah, but again, it goes back uh, to get a representative grade, the more material you have, the better. So
Yeah,
if you are then looking at it from a drill core perspective, if you can use all of the drill core, you have more material to assess your grade. And if you have a highly sensitive method like X-ray photon assaying, you're going to increase your potential to improve that grade even more.
yeah, that's right. It's certainly an interesting test that we could look at doing. Typically you would need to leave at least some sort of witness in the core box though to for future studies like geotechnical stuff and further stuff like that. So down the track, so there, it's certainly a test that we could do with a few holes and send off the whole core just to do a comparison.
But actually,
Um,
when you use it, you're left with the whole rock. You have it all there for your check assaying and
yeah, for sure. You just lose all the structural information that you would get if
see,
you
see, see.
leave that. Yeah,
Gotcha,
yeah, yeah.
gotcha. Okay, Aaron, we've talked for nearly an hour, and I want to wrap it up. So, what's ahead for Amex? What are you working on that could see news releases for the hungry audience of investors out there?
Yeah, so we're obviously like I said, we're continuing with the two drill rigs on site, working on expanding some of our zones to the west at the moment. We're developing obviously the drill plan for 2025 as we speak, not only with continuing on the expansion of our known zones, but with obviously developing a regional drill program as well, which we'll obviously have an update on at some point, as well as Jonathan, our VP of project developments, has begun starting some permitting work and environmental stuff in the background. So we should have some updates on that early next year also. So we're pushing forward with the project, continuing to do all we can to de-risk it and take those necessary steps in continuing to not only grow it but move it along in its life as well at the same time. So should be some good results. Continuing with the press releases of drill results as well as updates on the de-risking of the project as well.
So, do you think you'll have any more news out before the end of the year? It certainly sounds like you're going to have a very busy 2025 starting right at the beginning of 2025.
Yeah, we should do, Alan. I've got roughly a good 5,000 or so assays still in the labs at the moment. So once we start to receive those, we should have some more exciting drill results to come out.
Well, and 2025 is shaping up to be really busy for you guys.
2025 is going to be a very, very hot year for Amex, that's for sure.
From January right through the whole year.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Awesome. Let me close it off, Aaron. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks very much, Alan. I appreciate it.
There you go, folks. Amex Exploration. I don't think there's enough great um, development projects in the pipeline for gold, which is part of the argument why I think that there's gold is going a lot higher. There's not enough exploration success that leads to important discoveries. There's not enough development projects. The major mining companies are struggling to increase their production and replace their old mines with new mines. I don't think it's a coincidence that a gold mining company like Eldorado has a strategic investment in Amex, which I think speaks volumes to the potential that this is an important project that has the potential to be a new Quebec mining gold mining operation with a lot of blue sky ahead of it. So, as always, keep in mind they're my sponsor, so I am biased. But whether a company's a sponsor or a pick, they all have to fall through the same filters that I built up with 30 years of experience in this business, having been mentored by some of the greatest exploration geologists, geophysicists, geochemists. So take that for what it's worth. On that note, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors, and have a great day.